Just gonna get started here in about 10 minutes, so hang tight.
Are you there, Elise? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, so it says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh. That is weird. For some reason, I don't know. Let's see. Make you a host.
Let's see.
I'm gonna make you the host.
Oh, hi.
Hey, we just had someone who's actually on, but I think that they left and they're coming back.
Wow, this is like not the best background for me. Give me a second. I didn't realize like that you could see all my clothes. How's that? Better? Oh my god, let's go
If
back.
you can like tilt your camera maybe a little bit too, it'll just like cut that out. But either way, I think it'll.
But then you're gonna get all of my old records. Hold on. Oh, this house is too small.
You're okay. I mean, can you just move your computer to an angle?
Yeah. Okay. What about that?
What about like side to side?
Is that better?
Like if you move
Side to
it
side.
at an angle so the camera's facing more of the doors, I think.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. I know. I have another idea. Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason, okay, so I had to make you, oh, nice.
I've got so many of them. Okay, go ahead. What?
Um, I had to make you the host for you to be able to share your screen. So if you want to do a share screen or anything, that will, you'll need to share it from yours, unless you want to try and make me the host again.
Who can share? Only host. All panelists. Okay.
Yeah, I tried to
do
share and
that.
then it did that. So if you want
Do
to
you
make,
want to try?
if you want to make me the host again, just by clicking on my name and then more, and then make host, then I'll go into Zoom on the back end and see what I can do. Okay.
Okay. I think I just did it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That way when people jump on, they see that.
Nice.
I had half a dozen or so.
How are you, Elise? I didn't even.
I'm okay. Just, you know, drinking out of my new mug. Thank you again. I love it.
Oh, you're welcome. That makes me so happy. I gave Hannah hers yesterday, and she also was really happy with the size of the mug. So good. I thought it might be too big, but guess not. I love it.
Perfect.
I know. So we've got. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we'll give it to a couple minutes after 7 to start, and then I have this recording and I'll edit it down so then we can share it as well on YouTube.
Okay. Don't worry, I won't eat my things during the thing. I promise.
Favorite. So how do you want to do this? You want to, I mean, I can welcome everybody, then kick it to you. And then do you want to just kind of like go through your agenda and then take questions?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to cut out some of the things that I plan on talking about just because I don't think we're gonna have time. But I am going to focus on campaign strategies, engaging new voters, including approaching potential new voters. So I know we said it's bilingual. How should we go about that? Like I could do English first and then Spanish, but I do know that with that the information is gonna be trimmed to its very core, just for the sake of time, you know?
Yeah, I think if you do it mostly, let's see, we've got a couple people joining now. Hey, Mary. Hey, Jessica. Whatever you think is best, Carla, however you want to kind of go back and forth. And then we will take questions as we go in the chat so we can get a feel for where folks are there.
Perfect.
Hola, buenas tardes. Thank you for being here. We'll get started here shortly. Carla, how about we give it like 1 or 2 more minutes and then we start? I'm gonna go shut my door too so there's not any outside noise.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, ¿lista? Okay. Hola, buenas tardes y bienvenidos. Me llamo Elise Schrock y estoy la presidenta del Indiana Democratic Latino Caucus. I'm so excited to have everyone here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we are focusing on voter registration and how you can help get your community, your family members, your neighbors all registered to vote. To do that for us today, we have our voter education chair, Carla Lopez Owens, who is going to walk us through some of how to do that. We are going to do this in a bilingual way so that we have this information as accessible as possible. As we go along, please put your questions in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. And Carla, ready?
Yes, I am. Should I just start right?
Go right ahead.
From where I was planning on starting? Okay. So thank you, Elise, for that wonderful introduction. My name is Carla Lopez Owens. And like Elise said, we'll be doing this information in both English and Spanish to make it accessible. But because the information that we'll be giving is also going to be in Spanish, we're gonna have to trim down the amount of information that we do give you, but that doesn't mean that we won't be able to answer any questions later on with anything that we may have missed. So I'll say that in Spanish. Buenas noches, me llamo Carla y estoy aquí con Elise Shaw, que es la presidenta del Electoral Latino Demócrata en el estado de Indiana, de otras maneras conocido como el Indiana Latino Democratic Caucus. Hoy día vamos a platicar un poco acerca de información básica de cómo es que usted se puede registrar para votar. La información va a estar en español y en inglés, entonces es probable que algunas partes de la información que les comparto tengan que ser un poco cortas porque no tendremos todo el tiempo para platicar de todo lo que queremos platicar. Igual podremos contestar sus preguntas después de este video y seguir la comunicación después de ahí. So, para empezar, empezaré con información básica de fechas importantes específicamente para el estado de Indiana. So I'll start with just very basic dates here with in the state of Indiana. And again, this is focused for the state of Indiana. Vamos a platicar un poco de las calificaciones que una persona tiene que tener para poder registrarse. We'll talk about the qualifications that a person needs to meet in order to register to vote. Y la primera cosa es que la persona tiene que ser ciudadana de los Estados Unidos y eso significa que residentes permanentes de los Estados Unidos no califican para registrarse. Pienso que he platicado mucho de esto, pero siguen viniendo estas preguntas y quiero asegurarme que esta información esté clara, que los residentes permanentes no califican para registrarse. The first qualification is that a person must be a U.S. citizen, and I know that I've talked about this in the past, but I think it's really important to re-emphasize and iron that out, that legal permanent residents don't qualify to register to vote because I keep getting those questions. So I think that it's still like a doubt in people's minds. La segunda cosa que una persona tiene que tener para poder registrarse es tiene que tener los 18 años en o antes el día de las elecciones, en este caso las elecciones generales que van a ser el 3 de noviembre. Y eso significa que si una persona tendrá 17 años o tiene 17 años, pero tendrá los 18 años en o antes el 3 de noviembre, se pueden registrar para votar. The second thing that a person needs to have in order to register to vote to qualify is they have to be over the age of 18 on or before the date of the elections. So that means that if you are 17, but you will be 18 on or before November 3rd, then you are eligible to vote in the upcoming elections. La tercera cosa es para poder calificar para registrarse para votar, es que tiene que haber vivido como en el lugar donde usted vive 30 días, ni siquiera 30 días antes de las elecciones que van a suceder, en este caso el 3 de noviembre. Y so the third thing is that you have to have lived in the precinct where you'll be voting 30 days before you actually vote. And the fourth thing is, la cuarta cosa, perdón, es que una persona no tiene que estar encarcelada o no puede estar en la prisión actualmente encarcelada después de haber sido encontrada culpable de un crimen, pero si ya salió de la cárcel, entonces sí califica para registrarse para votar. En Indiana, las personas que tienen lo que se llama felonías sí pueden registrarse para votar, con tal de que no estén en la cárcel o en la prisión después de haber sido encontrados culpables. So the fourth thing is that a person can't be jailed or in prison after being found guilty of a felony, of a crime. But if you are released, you do qualify to register to vote. And in Indiana, felons they do qualify to register to vote. So, con eso, la información que les acabo de dar, vamos a repasar unas fechas importantes. Sé que he platicado de esto mucho, pero pienso que es muy importante tener estas fechas en mente. Mi amigo Fabio dijo que tendrían que memorizarse estas fechas como si fueran su número de seguro social, porque son tan importantes. Y la primera fecha es el 5 de octubre, que es la fecha final que una persona tiene para poder registrarse, para poder votar en las elecciones generales, ¿ok? Después de eso, las elecciones generales tomarán lugar el 3 de noviembre del 2020. Y empezando el 6 de octubre, que es el día después de que se cierren las registraciones, una persona puede empezar a votar temprano en los lugares designados y todo depende del condado donde usted vive. Yo vivo en el condado de Marion y yo voy a buscar las direcciones, los lugares designados en Marion County. So voy a decir eso en inglés. The important dates that I always like to highlight are the dates that are coming up. October 5th, which is the deadline to register to vote in the upcoming elections. The upcoming elections will be November 3rd, 2020. And starting October 6th, a person can start voting early in person at a designated location. So that all depends on the county that you are living in. And for example, I live in Marion County, so I would look to the indianavoters.in.gov to find the information. There's other links that we can also provide you with and to give you this information, but it all depends on the county that you live in to like where you'll be eligible to vote early in. I know that's kind of confusing. Some people think that even if they live in Hamilton County, they can early vote in a location in Marion County, but that's not the case. So, vamos a regresar a español. Una persona, pues después de registrarse, puede empezar a votar temprano, empezando el 6 de octubre de este año. Y si usted vive en el condado de Hamilton, no podrá votar en el condado de Marion porque todo depende del condado donde usted vive cuando se registró para votar. ¿Ok? A ver, ¿qué más? ¿Qué otras cosas? ¿Qué otras cosas importantes en este momento quiero compartir con ustedes? So, ok. Una de las cosas que me han pedido personas que están tratando de conseguir información de este proceso es cómo se llena la forma para registrarse para votar. One of the things that I've been asked about is how you fill out the form that you use to actually register to vote. So yo tengo la forma federal enfrente de mí. I have the federal form in front of me, and that's the one that we'll be using to fill out. I'll use my information, but just so that if people have questions, I like to use the federal form. Elise, you can jump in here and talk about the Indiana form if you want to. But I like to use the federal form because it's very straightforward. It's not as confusing as the Indiana form, in my opinion. And you can also find this form in Spanish. Una de las preguntas que me han hecho personas es si les puedo enseñar cómo llenar la forma actual cuando se está registrando para votar. Yo típicamente uso la forma federal porque es más simple, las preguntas no son tan confusas, en mi opinión, y también pueden encontrar esta forma en español. Y eso es lo que vamos a hacer ahora. Elise quizás pueda, si ella tiene comentarios acerca de la forma de, del estado de Indiana, ella puede platicar de eso. No sé. Do you have any comments about the Indiana form?
Honestly, I would just say that they're available in both English and in Espanol. Pero you cannot actually fill your ballot out in Spanish. Those are only in English, so that's one thing to note. But as far as the applications go, the ones, it's very similar. The state form can be found at indianavoters.com, and all of that is in a link that I put in the chat, and you can return that to your county clerk.
Okay, I think we get a question. It says, where can we help in person? Any volunteer opportunities? Yes, there are volunteer opportunities. We will get to that towards the end. So, because we definitely want to get through this form. So, la única cosa que dijo Elise en este momento acerca de las formas es que las dos formas están en español y que se pueden usar una o la otra para registrarse para votar. Y la otra cosa que también quería comentar es que yo típicamente uso esta forma cuando no podemos cuando una persona no se puede registrar por el teléfono. Y una persona no se puede registrar por el teléfono si no tiene una identificación del estado de Indiana. And another thing that I wanted to mention is that I use the federal forms as well when a person doesn't have an Indiana state issued ID. So they don't have a driver's license or an identification because and a lot of people don't have that, but they have other forms of ID that they will then use to cast their ballot. So, okay, I don't know if we can, at least can we pull this form up somehow?
Let me get into where the link is really quickly.
And then I can just read off the questions here so that you know what the form is asking for. The first two questions that the form asks is, are you a citizen of the US? Will you be 18 years old on or before election day? So you either have to say yes to both of them, and if you say no, then you can't fill out the form. You're not eligible. La primera pregunta es si la persona es ciudadana de los Estados Unidos, y la segunda pregunta es si tendrá los 18 años en o antes el día de las elecciones. Si ustedes dicen que no a una de esas dos preguntas, no pueden llenar la forma porque no son elegibles para votar. The next section focuses on biographical, biographical information, Mr., Miss, Mrs., last name, first name, middle name, if you go by junior, senior, first, third, home address, apartment or lot, city or town, state, zip code, and it gives you the option of filling this out if you get your mail from in a different address. Okay, here we go. So if we go down, perfect. Thank you, Elise. So I was just reading. Oh wait, this is the one in Spanish. Can you pull the one in English? Repasaremos la información en español y en inglés, pero es básicamente la misma. Going down this one square, like squares 1 through 7, it's just a lot of biographical information. And as you can see, last name, first name. And if you get your mail at a different address other than the one that's your home address, then you would put that information there. Let's see. So choice of party, you can either put Republican, Democrat, your choice of party. Telephone number, you don't have to put that down, it's optional. Your race or ethnic group. Elise, I don't know, do we have to put that down? I know it says optional, or it says see item 8 in the instructions for your states. So we can check that real quick. But what I focus on is the ID number right here, the ID number, which is where you can use the last 4 digits of your social security number. I'll say that in Spanish really quickly. Esta información al principio de la forma es información básica, biográfica de usted. Pregunta por su nombre, su dirección. Si usted recibe correo en alguna otra dirección, también puede poner esa información aquí. Pero lo que yo me enfoco es esta parte, que es el número de identificación aquí. Y en este lugar usted puede poner los últimos 4 números de su seguro social. O también puede poner su Indiana Driver's License Number, su número de licencia del estado de Indiana. Pero eso es lo que me quiero enfocar. Después de eso, déjeme terminar esto. So after filling the biographical information out here, which is very straightforward, then you have to make sure that you have the person sign this right here and date it, okay? And then it will be completed. Después de hacer esto, después de llenar esta parte aquí, la única cosa que usted tendrá que hacer es firmar en esta caja y poner la fecha y ya estará llena la aplicación. The other thing that I want to talk about with this form is that it gives you the option to fill out the information if you have changed your name, your last name, or your address. So that information is in the middle section. Esta forma también le da la oportunidad de actualizar su registración si es que se cambió de apellido o si se cambió de dirección. Después de esto, let's see. See usted, okay, one last thing. With this form also, if the person is unable to sign and I sign on their behalf, then I have to put my information down here. Okay, so si la persona no puede firmar la forma y yo tengo que firmar la forma de parte de ellos, yo tengo que poner mi información aquí abajo, básicamente designando que yo soy quien digo que soy, que no hice esto en contra de la ley y que todo está bien. So, yes. Last thing with this form that I like about this form is that it gives you the option of, if you're homeless, you can put addresses or street names of where you typically are, and that's where the mail or that's where the ballot will ultimately come to you. The Indiana form doesn't have this little map and you have to draw it somewhere, and I think that's hard for some people. So, la última cosa con esta forma es que también le da un espacio si usted no tiene una casa, es en este momento como quizás la persona está sin casa, también hay un mapa que le da la opción, la oportunidad de poner las carreteras, las calles donde usted se está quedando actualmente. So puede ser como calles fijas o grandes como Meridian o 38. Y ahí es ahí donde va a llegar la información para usted para votar en las elecciones. Okay. Any questions about the form? I don't see any questions. Okay. No questions about the form. So the next thing that I want to focus on, la siguiente cosa que me voy a enfocar es cómo podemos acercarnos a personas que quizás son nuevas en este proceso y quieren registrarse para votar. I'm going to talk a little bit about approaching new voters. Y let's see, I'll do in Spanish and then I'll go in English. Lo diré en español y luego lo diré en inglés. La primera cosa que yo alento a las personas que están involucradas en registrar a personas para votar es que ellos entienden dónde van a ir a registrar a las personas. Por ejemplo, el grupo de personas es diferente y cómo va a platicar con ellos tiene que ver dónde van a estar ellos actualmente. Por ejemplo, no... eh, la manera que una persona platicaría con alguien en el círculo del centro de la ciudad, o quizás en su trabajo, o quizás afuera de restaurantes, es diferente que comparado a que usted esté platicando con alguien que, no sé, está saliendo de la tienda mexicana, de la Zaraga, del Discount Mall, porque tiene que saber dónde está. Esa es la primera cosa. Y de ahí, pues empezar a platicar con la persona, porque lo que no queremos hacer y lo que no queremos hacer es poner a las personas en una posición incómoda. Y a lo que me refiero con eso es que no les queremos preguntar si tienen papeles, si están en el país con documentos, si están documentados. Um, so déjeme decir esto en inglés. So one of the things that with this section is approaching new potential voters, right? And one of the things that I talk about is understanding who your audience is. So the way that you would approach someone who is at the Circle downtown or who is like outside of a restaurant downtown Indianapolis, it's going to be different from the way that you approach someone who is leaving the Mexican store or the Saraga or the international market, the discount mall. Because what we don't want to do is place these members of like the community in uncomfortable situations or in compromising situations. We don't want to right out ask them if they have papers, if they're documented here in the U.S. Yeah, because it opens up an uncomfortable, a can of worms. So that's what you don't want to do. So with that, you approach them and you start having a conversation with them. The way that I do it, and I know that a lot of people can't do this, is, well, I share with them that I didn't have papers. I was here undocumented for a long time. And then I talk through the process of how it was that I was able to get citizenship. And because I have citizenship, then I can register. Then I was eligible to register to vote. But you need to have a conversation. Like it needs to be a conversation with them. Y de lo que acabo de decir es que la manera que yo hago esto es empiezo a tener una conversación con las personas y luego ya de ahí pues yo comparto con ellos que en algún momento yo viví en los Estados Unidos sin papeles, sin documentos y que después de un tiempo conseguí la ciudadanía en el 2009 y ya después de haber conseguido la ciudadanía es ahí cuando yo me registré para votar y ya fui elegible para registrarme. Entonces, lo que queremos hacer es tener estas conversaciones porque no queremos ponerlas a las personas en un lugar incómodo y pues que les dé miedo, ¿verdad? Porque no queremos hacer eso. So, with that, if you guys are registering Spanish speaking, maybe the immigrant community, what I would suggest that you do is that you have someone who understands the community, who grew up in that community, who is part of that community, so that you're not, again, doing anything that is putting anyone in a compromising situation, because you want to have a lot of sensitivity and understanding where we're coming from, I think that clarifies and that prevents, like if you're understanding where we're coming from, like where the community is coming from, I think that diminishes the possibilities of like getting in a compromising situation. So si alguien va a registrar a personas para votar en una comunidad que es latina, que es inmigrante, que lo que yo recomiendo es que vayan con alguien que conoce la comunidad y que entienda la cultura de dónde venimos, y no solamente tiene que ser latina de México, ¿verdad? Puede ser de otra comunidad. Y ya de esa manera, si entendiendo esto de dónde venimos nosotros, ya de ahí no, no será la situación como complicada. That's what I have to say about that. So, Elise, I don't know if you have any follow-up information or any comments to what I just said.
No, as always, we just want to be respectful and cautious and make sure that we're meeting people where they're at, because um, this is a very high stakes, high tension election. So there are a lot of perspectives that we're trying to help and protect and, be respectful of.
Exactly. Yes, I appreciate that too. So, okay. La otra cosa que también quiero comentar es como un mensaje y también como un consejo de todo esto, es que si ustedes están platicando con alguien que no es elegible para registrarse para votar, entonces pregúntenles a ellos si tienen a familiares que sí son elegibles. Lo que hemos encontrado es que muchas veces quizás los padres o los adultos en una casa son miembros de una familia que tienen estatus mixto. No todos son ciudadanos, no todos son residentes permanentes, no todos tienen documentos. Entonces, si alguien en la familia no califica para votar, entonces que encuentren a alguien que sí califica para votar y aléntenlos a ellos, que le digan a esta persona que se registre. So the other thing that I was going to say is, when you're speaking with these communities, what I have found is that when you have conversations with the adults in the family, a lot of these people are coming from mixed status families. And what that means is that maybe some of them are citizens of the US, some of them are legal permanent residents, some of them have no papers whatsoever, some of them have DACA, deferred action for childhood arrival. And so when you're talking to any one of the members of the family, what you're going to want to ask is, okay, you're not eligible to register, but you likely know someone who is. And it's that generational gap, right? We have parents who have kids who qualify, but who just, by virtue of a lot of things in their lives, they just haven't registered to vote because it's just been something so foreign for so long for a lot of these people. I know, like, it was definitely the case for me growing up. I wanted nothing to do with politics just because I was worried about getting through the next day or the week or the month or whatever. So that's something that you for sure want to ask about, and you want to follow up with more questions. So if they hint and they say, I think I may know someone who is eligible to register to vote, then you grab that information. Like, you either say, hey, here's my information. Can you please have them follow up with me? Or can I get their information and I'll follow up with them? You will be surprised at how many people actually, give you their information so you can follow up with their loved one, their family members. So that's what we have found when we've gone out into these communities. Ya platiqué un poco acerca de si usted no califica para registrarse, si los adultos en la familia no califican para registrarse, que encuentren a alguien que sí califica y que haga ese proceso. Podemos ayudarlos con ese proceso y estamos aquí para contestar a sus preguntas. So that's what I have to say about that other part. Let's see, 7:30. I'll talk a little bit about tactics with undecided voters. voy a platicar un poco acerca de cómo pueden tener conversaciones con personas que todavía no han hecho una decisión si van a votar o por quién van a votar, porque eso también es algo que me han hecho preguntas acerca. Um, I'll start with in English and then I'll go in Spanish. So, after registering a person to vote and they still don't know who they're going to vote for, you know, we are doing this training as part of the Indiana Latino Democratic Caucus. So that's where we're coming from. And that's what we're encouraging people to register as Democrats, because we're trying to replace, you know, get a new president in office. So the way that I approach that situation, if there's an undecided voter, first I take a deep breath and, you know, understand that people are coming from with where they're coming from. You have to meet them where they're at. And one of the ways that I do that is I share my personal story. The fact that for a long time I wasn't eligible to vote because I didn't have paperwork here in the US. I was undocumented until I got my legal permanent residency, and then I became a citizen. But for a long time, I couldn't vote. And I have a lot of members of my family who don't qualify to vote because they just don't have the proper paperwork to be here. They're either in process to get in their citizenship, or they just have no options, you know? So that's one of the points that I bring up. And vote for, like, take one for the team, take one for go vote on behalf of my friends, my community, like people in my community who don't who won't have this opportunity. That's what I say. And then another thing that I also like to bring up, and obviously these are things that you guys can talk about with where you're coming from. You don't have to use these points, but these are just like what I use because this is what I have found works, and it's persuasive and it just makes sense. It's common sense. But another thing that I also talk about is the time to, okay, a movement is not, like, you shouldn't use your, in my opinion, you shouldn't use your vote protesting the, like, what's going on in the elections. I understand again where people are coming from with that, but what I say to that is that we have year round, around the year, to build these movements. And the date of the elections, like right now, that's when we need people to show up for us, for a lot of us who historically have been underrepresented and excluded from a lot of these conversations. And again, I understand why people may not want to cast a vote because they're frustrated, because they're angry. But the way that I personally see it, it's like a burning house right now. And it's hard for me to not get angry about this because I've seen firsthand. I work in an immigration law firm as a law clerk, and I work with a lot of clients who we've seen just like the direct impact and consequences that this administration has had on our community, on my family members. And right now we are trying to neutralize the situation. The house is burning and we just need to neutralize the situation. The attacks keep coming. And I think, you know, with the Democrat candidates that we have right now, we have an opportunity to, we have options. We have the ability to talk about, you know, immigration reform, healthcare, education, whereas right now that's not even like it's not even an option. So I could go on more about that, but I'm not going to because I think I'll just say something that I may regret later. But my point is that, again, I've seen firsthand just the consequences, the terrible, terrible consequences that this administration has brought to not just the immigrant community, but the poor community, like the working class. And all that to say, please cast your ballot November 3rd, please, like, vote for us. The other thing is, you know, we've researched, you know, some of the current policies that are being proposed by the Democratic candidates, and those, you know, they're not perfect, but they're promising. And again, just willingness to compromise and to collaborate and to work together so that we get out of this current situation. I think that's the point that I would drive when talking to people who are still undecided and who just are apathetic about voting. So yeah, and I'll say that, and I don't know, Elise, do you want to add anything to what I just said?
Yeah, the one thing that I would love to add too is that one of the objectives of the Latino caucus is to make sure that we are increasing our representation. And I'm really excited because we have 10 candidates running at every single level of government in Indiana. So, you know, it is about making sure that we restore some decency in the presidency, and mitigate the incredible damage and trauma that's been done to our community and to other communities under this administration. But I also want to celebrate that we have so many wonderful candidates, Latino candidates here in Indiana that we want to support. I will put we have some more information on our website about those candidates. I'm incredibly proud of them because no one can represent us better than ourselves. And I think that is, but that is still space that we struggle to make for ourselves. And when Latinos run and are seen in positions of power, I think it really helps build momentum and inspire others to also take on that mantle, to also run, to also get involved. So, well, this is about making sure we have change from the White House down. I just want to add that I'm incredibly proud of the work that's being done in state. I'm sorry for the background noise. We've got a lot of work going on in our house. I'm really proud of the candidates that we have here in Indiana running to represent Latinos and all Hoosiers. We know that everyone's quality of life is better when Latinos are in leadership positions.
Thank you. Exactly. You're exactly right. And so with another point that I want to make with what you just said is local elections matter because these people are elected officials at the local level and state level are the elected officials that have the most direct impact on our quality of life. And like Elise said, representation matters. I was reading something the other day just about the Latino vote and how we're seen as this quote unquote sleeping giant because when that base is activated, then change needs to happen because you're like starting to hold people accountable, right? And I've also seen that in the past especially with the Obama administration, we saw a record number of Latinos coming out to vote because of the promise of change and the excitement that came around that. And I know that, things have been very hard and difficult for so many of us, but I think if we can get some of that energy back and like encouraging people, just talking about why this is so important for us, then people, hopefully will see where we're coming from. I also saw that 60% of people are never asked to register to vote, which is just ridiculous to me. And it's a reflection, I think, of the priorities that that people have. And again, another percentage is that 42% of all unregistered voters are between the ages 18 to 24. So that's a lot of young voters. And going back to what I was saying earlier with the with talking to young people, like if the parents if the parents don't qualify, if the adults in the family don't qualify, coming from these mixed status families, then the young people do. And sharing again where you're coming from and sharing why this is important to you. And I was having a conversation with Wendy. She's a member of, she's been, doing a lot of work, a lot of amazing work here in the community. And she was sharing with me that she was talking to her younger sister who just also registered to vote. And Wendy sharing where she was coming from and why this was important to her made a difference in like the way that her sister approached the situation, politics. So I think with that, something else that I want to point out about local elections and about having people that represent us, like Elise was talking about, the Latino candidates that are coming here, like they understand where we're coming from. So think about that when your next prosecutor is elected, when your next, again, just like city county councilors are elected, if our elected officials understood the struggles that our communities go through, for example, what it means, like what our relationship is with ICE, or what our relationship is with law enforcement, then they will be more willing to see where we're coming from, and again work towards a collaborative effort to address these issues and take us seriously, like where we're coming from, because that's important. Because right now I don't see that with the local, with the exception of course great people like Ryan Mears, but that void is there. So that's why we need representation and to support local races too. Okay, en español, really quickly. I'll summarize that really fast. Algo que Elise y yo estamos platicando es acerca de la representación y que en este momento hay muchos candidatos, no muchos, pero sí hay varios candidatos aquí en el estado de Indiana que están en carreras locales, en carreras estatales, y es importante también tomar en cuenta lo que ellos están haciendo, porque al fin del día, esas personas sí van a ser las personas que nos van a representar a nosotros y a nuestros intereses. Y tenemos que apoyarlos, tenemos que hacer una búsqueda, tenemos que aprender acerca de ellos para ver qué tipo de regulaciones, qué tipo de ideas ellos quieren ver para nuestra comunidad. Y es importante también como hacer esas búsquedas y aprender de esos candidatos, porque si ellos entienden de dónde estamos viniendo nosotros, de qué tipo de dificultades hemos tenido aquí en nuestra comunidad, yo pienso que de esa manera ellos estarán más dispuestos, más disponibles a tener conversaciones con nosotros de cómo es que podemos componer la situación, como por ejemplo, qué significa tener, cuál es nuestra relación quizás con inmigración o con la policía o con figuras de poder, porque si ellos otra vez entienden de dónde venimos nosotros, como que nos da miedo, que no tenemos confianza en estas instituciones, entonces podemos empezar a tener esas conversaciones y ojalá ya de ahí pues hacer un cambio que sí vale la pena. So, esto es lo que acabamos de platicar. And so I think, so we've got, okay, 7:43. I think I'll talk a little bit about where a person can register to vote, like where they can find information on candidates running in the election. Voy a platicar rápidamente, ya sé que ya casi son las 8, no quiero tomar todo su tiempo esta noche, pero voy a platicar de dónde puede registrarse para votar, repasar las fechas importantes y averiguar quién está en sus boletas de las elecciones para que usted pueda hacer una decisión educada haciendo haciendo su votación. So I think I'll just dive that finally. I don't think this will take the last 15 minutes. I mean, I hope that I'm not taking a lot of you guys' time. Thank you for being here and bearing with us. So a person can register one of two ways. They can either go to, in Indiana, again, this is like specifically to Indiana, they can go to the indianavoters.in.gov information that I think Elise has already put on the chat. And if you're going to register through that way, if you're going to register through that way, I'll just stick to English, then you do need to have a driver's license or an Indiana state issued ID, because it's going to ask you for the driver's license number. The other way that you can register to vote is by requesting a form with the the division board. Am I saying that right, Elise? I always forget because I go back and forth in Spanish and English all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And we can put that information on the chat as well. But you'll request this form, you will fill it out, you will sign it, and then you will send it back to the address that's included in the paperwork that came to you. Right now, unfortunately, you cannot vote online. I know that's another question that we've been getting asked a lot, but you can only register to vote online and you can request an absentee ballot. And an absentee ballot is just a completely, a completely new issue that we can talk about later because that just it's going to take a lot of time. And this is just focused on registering to vote. So that's one of the two ways that you can register to vote. Now I'll say that in Spanish. So hay dos maneras que una persona se puede registrar para votar. La primera es con ir al sitio de web de indianavoters.in.gov y esta información sí está en inglés, entonces si es necesario, por favor tengan a alguien que les pueda ayudar con este proceso y usted, si va a hacer su proceso para registrarse con este sitio de web, por favor, sepan que tendrán que tener su identificación o una licencia porque sí van a ocupar el número que está en esta identificación. La segunda manera es con pedir una forma actual que les estaba enseñando hace rato. Y pueden pedir esta forma de el electoral, de la división electoral de Indiana, perdón. Y también les podemos dar esta información. Si tienen preguntas específicas, también les podemos ayudar con eso. Después de que reciban la forma, la van a llenar, la van a firmar y la van a regresar a a la dirección que se encuentra en los documentos que le llegó a usted. Desafortunadamente, en este momento, una persona no se puede registrar, una persona no puede votar en la computadora, pero sí puede pedir una boleta para poder votar por correo. Vamos a platicar de ese proceso en otro lado porque es muy complicado y sí, muy complejo, complicado y sí va a tomar un poco de tiempo para explicarles ese proceso. So there's that information. And then just let me go over the important dates that we want to give people. October 5th is the deadline to register to vote in the upcoming elections. You can start voting early in person October 6th. It all depends on the county that you live in. For example, I live in Marion County, so I would look at the addresses that for early voting in Marion County. And if you live in a different county, then you would look at the addresses for that particular county. And a person can start voting early from October 6th up until November 2nd. Because October 3rd is the actual, the day of voting. Something else that I want to highlight is if you can vote early, please, you should do that because you're diminishing the amount of people that are going to go vote on November 3rd. And you're reducing your exposure to other people who may be sick. You're protecting yourself, you're protecting others. You are taking precautions so that you don't get sick, you don't get others sick, and that's really important. I know from experience when I have voted on November 3rd, like in a big election, the lines are super long and you have to be like jam-packed. And that's not good for any one of us recently. So, la información ahora en español. Muy básicamente, voy a repasar las fechas importantes. El 5 de octubre es para cuando una persona tiene hasta el 5 de octubre para registrarse para votar. Puede empezar a votar temprano el 6 de octubre. Y si usted tiene la oportunidad o la opción de votar temprano, por favor haga eso, porque de esa manera usted está cuidándose a usted, está cuidando a otras personas y no, si usted vota temprano, eso significa que no tendrá que ir el 3 de noviembre y con las experiencias que yo he tenido, cuando yo he ido a votar el 3 de noviembre, he encontrado que las líneas están muy, muy largas y las personas tienen que estar muy cercas. Y eso no es bueno en este momento, especialmente por lo que está pasando con el virus. Queremos prevenir que una persona se enferme Y si usted puede ir a votar temprano, por favor, hágalo. Puede hacerlo de octubre 6 hasta el 2 de noviembre y tiene todo este tiempo para hacerlo. Tenga un plan de cómo va a llegar al lugar para votar con desinfectante para limpiar lo que ha tocado. Have a plan. If you are going to vote early, please make sure if you have hand sanitizer, take it with you, wear your mask, and take all the precautions that you can to prevent this disease from spreading. So please vote early, please, if you can, please. I'm begging you. Okay. Let's see. Okay, last point. Oh, yes, let's talk about the Indie Voto Latino Toolkit. So what Elise and the wonderful people at the Indiana Latino Democratic Caucus have done is there is this toolkit. And if you look on the chat, it's the last link. That gives you information. It's basically everything that we just talked about. It's in English and it's in Spanish. And on top of that, it also gives you information about local candidates that are running in the elections. That's super important. I mean, it gives you all the information that you need in this one snapshot. Super accessible. En español ahora, lo que estamos viendo en este momento es un recurso que ha hecho Elise y las personas aquí en el electoral demócrata latino en el estado de Indiana. Es toda la información que hemos cubrido hoy día, pero está en este lugar muy corto, es muy fácil para leerlo. También incluye candidatos que están aquí en el estado de Indiana. Son candidatos para conseguir ojalá ganar sus elecciones, y son latinos. Entonces tienen toda esa información aquí. Por favor, comparten esta información con sus familiares. Está en español y en inglés. Y como siempre, cualquier otra pregunta que no esté incluida aquí, por favor, díganoslas a nosotras y se las responderemos. So with this information, look through it. If you have any questions after you look through this very straightforward and informational toolkit, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to answer that for you. And then the last thing, la última cosa que voy a platicar, the last thing that I'll talk about is just activating your personal base or your personal network. I know I already talked about this with if mom, dad, adults in the family don't have status, then keep asking questions to see if you can find someone who does and who can register to vote. Other than that, the other thing that you can do in your personal life is look through your Facebook friends, because I know because I have a whole bunch of people on my Facebook that I'm friends with that I don't know if they're registered to vote. So look through the list of look through your Facebook friend list and just send them a message. Be very straightforward about what you're messaging them about, because I, for one, don't like the back and forth of hey, how you doing, if you haven't seen someone in a really long time. Maybe I feel like they're gonna sell me some pyramid scheme. So if you could just, get that out of the way and just say, hi, how are you? Are you registered to vote? Are you not? Oh, can I help you register to vote? And then just get the conversation going from there. I actually have found that that's very effective, and people are more than willing to answer this and to register, because if we remember one of the statistics that I gave you guys earlier, that I think it's 60% of people are never asked to register, which is just crazy to me. So that's where you come in, and you are going to be that super extra person with your voter registration forms with no shame, and because that's what you're out to do. That's what we're here to do. So rápidamente, la otra cosa, sé que he platicado acerca de esto, pero si, por ejemplo, usted está platicando con alguien y los adultos en la familia no califican para registrarse para votar, entonces pregunten acerca de sus hijos, primos, otros familiares que sí califiquen. Y de otra manera, la otra cosa que ustedes también pueden hacer es buscar en su lista de amigos en Facebook. Yo sé que hay alguien en su lista de amigos de Facebook que que no se han registrado para votar. Una de las cosas que estábamos cubriendo hace rato es que 60% de personas nunca les preguntan si están registradas. Y esto es como muy raro para mí porque no entiendo cómo esto es 60% de las personas, es un número muy grande. So, mándenles un mensaje en Facebook y solamente pregúntenles si se han registrado. Y lo que yo he encontrado con mi experiencia es que la mayoría de las personas están, como no están enojadas de platicar conmigo y quieren más información. Y de ahí, pues yo les ayudo a registrarse y es muy, muy fácil ya de ahí. Entonces, si pueden hacer eso, por favor, les alento que hagan esto y de esa manera pueden activar a su propio grupo de amigos, de familiares para seguir con este movimiento que estamos tratando de hacer. So that I just covered that in Spanish. And I think, unless you guys have any questions, I think I've covered a lot of stuff. I know that I've been talking a lot, sorry. But if you guys have any questions, and if not, we can wrap up because it's 8 p.m.
Gracias, Carla. Thank you so much. We're so appreciative. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I also put in some information on the Indiana Democratic Latino Caucus's website. I put the link for our toolkit all in there. So reach out to us anytime if you need more resources. If you need support, if you have questions, we're here. We're on social media at In Latino Dems on Facebook and on Twitter, and we're pretty active. So if you were here tonight and want to post about that, please share in the Latino voter toolkit. We also have some graphics that you can share to encourage your friends and family to register to vote as well. Awesome.
Yeah. I think it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Once you start, it's fine.
Yep.
You'll get over the initial pain and no problem. You just do it.
Well, thank you everyone for making time to be here with us in this space and for taking time to learn about how we can empower la comunidad. It's so important. We need more of us. We need to be working together. And on to November.
Yes, here we go. Come on, guys. We got this. We've got no choice.
Yep. All right. Muchísimas gracias. And we will talk to you all soon.
Okay. Bye.